Hello and welcome to another episode of Darks in Dublin. And as we are seen in a reception room at the Hermetic Chantry located in Trinity College, Dublin, where a probationary new member of the Order of Hermes is meeting with a slightly more established member to discuss secret important hermetic matters, clearly. So, yeah, Rupert will say arrive. He's probably wearing a casual suit today.
Mr. King, for his part, while wearing a decent suit, does look a little disheveled, like it hasn't been cleaned probably in a few weeks. But other than that, he does look fairly decent. His hair is combed. He does look like he is shaved and bathed and whatnot. So he's not a complete dishevelment.
Mr. King, I presume.
He will stand to meet you and shake his hand. Yes, you are.
Certainly shake the hand. Rupert Gallo, of the House Flambeau. D'Onofrio tells me you'll be joining us.
Yes, Madame D'Onofrio was nice enough to accept my application that I gave earlier today.
Shall we sit?
Yes, of course. Do you have any coffee or tea?
I'm sure either could be arranged.
Mint tea is my preference if tea, and coffee I will have just black, double sweet, no cream. If it's not too much trouble.
Not at all. I'll be back in a moment. So we'll go off and he'll have conventional English tea for himself and bring back mint tea for you. So where were we?
Yes.
So would you like to tell me what brings you to us?
Would you like the short version or the long version?
Whichever you think best.
For now, the short version is probably the best. The reason I am here is because the Hermetic Order, from my knowledge of them, is the one most likely to agree with my own viewpoints and are the most likely to benefit what I need, and I'm able to most benefit their needs. That's my understanding. A little bit about myself. As I said, my name is Mr. Well, I go by Mr. King by most people, but my name is Beauregard. I come from Texas in the United States, specifically Dallas. I retired working for the Internal Revenue Service over there, and that's where my skills lie, is in bookkeeping, accounting, management of money, portfolios, things like that. I've had you might call me a paper wizard, as it were.
And how long ago did you awaken?
Oh my. My time of enlightenment was probably in the winter of 1991. So a while back.
Quite some time then.
Yes, I am. I am no slouch as far as a basic understanding of the way our universe treats us.
And it sounds like you've you obviously been around long enough that and it sounds like you're making an informed decision.
I didn't make the decision lightly, I'll put it that way.
I see.
This is good tea. I'll have to pick some up when I establish another abode.
So we do have quite a large chantry here, located in this building within the campus. The coffee shops on the campus are also not bad, for that matter.
That's good.
And there are facilities here for our members to use. and I think at least some of the our younger members also reside here. Um, so you've already met Magister D'Onofri.
Yes, briefly today at the facility known as Agrabah Nights.
Oh, oh, is that in use again? I
Uh, I've been by there a few times and met some of the local magi.
I heard it was compromised. There was some incident with the theocracy there.
Yes, there was. From my understanding and what I would theorize is that I'm not sure what to call the creature that manages it, but the creature that manages it, I believe, has likely relocated it spatially to where it doesn't match up when it's attempted to be viewed any longer. That is my guess.
Right. Okay.
Now, if only we could do something about people. And he just shakes his head and mutters something about bees.
Looks puzzled at the reference.
Some fool of a verbena was there and new to the city, and was amazed at the prospect of being able to summon food in front of them. And they, on a joke, I believe, called forth bees. It could have ended badly. Mr. Grant of the Akashiana had his face completely swollen to the point that his eyes swole shut. It did not look good. I believe this person is a apprentice of one, and he scratches his chin for a moment. One Miss Callie Bjornson, the individual with the scar on her face.
Sorry, I know I know Carly who you're speaking about. Yes. We've
Yes, she is no fan of me.
well. She's certainly no fan of the order either.
Ah, well, it kind of matches up then. No use trying to make someone your friend when they have no desire.
No, there are well, that is one of the unfortunate situations in this city. But
I've met, like I said, a few of the magi here, primarily through there. However, I have met a individual of the, I believe she said the Kavadi, by the name of Samantha. She appeared to be a nurse or a doctor. I couldn't tell which.
Samantha does not ring any bells with me.
I'm not sure if it's Samantha, but I know Sam was what her she introduced herself as. Likely Samantha, but I'm not sure. And I was introduced to a man of Asian descent by the name of Soul, who had quite the deep pockets, as it were.
Oh,
I don't know how many other people have met him, because if I were to use a term that the kids would know, most likely, he seemed to be as rich as Batman. He apparently has either leased out or owns or is buying a hotel in the city. I actually need to meet with him. He had offered for me to look at his books and help him out a little.
I think we have most traditions representing the city, and indeed some of the crafts as well. Carly, who you mentioned, is one of the joined heads of the verbena in the city.
Yes.
The other being a lady named Morgan.
I believe I saw her once. She is the one with the eye patch, yes?
Yes.
Yes.
So, for our part, at tradition meetings, the order is represented by a Master Crowshaw, who is also head of the chantry here. Though you may not see him around very much, he's very
busy.
He's possibly very busy with his own research and possibly not particularly interested in politics. So
There's something to be said about being dedicated to your work.
Quite. So often, Magister D'Onofri, who you've met, actually takes up a lot of the load there.
That is completely understandable. From my understanding, Lady D'Onofrier was one of the people leading the charge against the Canticles, I believe, most recently.
We call themselves the Canticlers of Lamination. I think most of us was just still calling them Templars. It was far shorter. Yeah, a sad business all in all. I don't know how much you've heard of that sorry affair.
Not too much, to be completely honest.
So, the Knights Templar have existed for centuries as a craft.
Mm-hmm.
From what I gather, these were the Templars who refused to abandon Jerusalem. I'm assuming you know at least the sleeper stories of the Templars.
Understood.
Anyway, in recent times, the Templars were re-accepted and joined the Celestial Chorus. They then, however, began a purge of the non-Christian members of the chorus.
Well, that seems odd. I thought the chorus was inclusive so long as they, what's the word they use? They believe that all the power comes from something they call the One, I believe.
Yes, that would fit my understanding. Some would say they're a non-denominational religious organisation. They recognize God has many names and there are many paths to knowing Him.
Understood.
An entirely not unreasonable position. And certainly at least most theologians would recognise that the Jews, the Christians, and the Muslims at least are praying to the same God, if in very different ways.
Mm-hmm.
They did not see it quite this way. So they started a purge of the Jews, the Muslims, the pagans. I mean, the chorus has always been a predominantly Christian organisation.
Well, yes, I can definitely tell that.
They took it a bit far. They then announced they were leaving the chorus. The chorus was leaving the traditions to become these canticlers. The traditions decided at that point that these people didn't speak for the chorus, and after they didn't release the prisoners, declared war on them. They were holding St. Patrick's Cathedral here in Dublin. They later abandoned that for their own fortress in the Umbra. And yes, the matter has now been dealt with. It was a sorry business.
I would imagine so. I can't imagine. You just see him kind of cut off what he says and take another drink of his tea and kind of rub his temples. I can't imagine the amount of paperwork involved in that.
Well, quite. The paperwork is just still ongoing. I'm inquiring after the legal proceedings for the Templars were defeated. They're in custody.
Mm-hmm.
Celestial Chorus want to deal with it as an internal matter.
Well, that's understandable. Did these individuals take actions outside of their own tradition? Meaning, did they kill anyone outside of their tradition?
I would be shocked if they didn't.
If indeed they did not, however, wouldn't that be grounds for them to handle it internally?
It would certainly be grounds to, yes. But given they were actively hunting pagans and others, well, actually, no. Oddly, they weren't. They were hunting. They were hunting technocrats. They were hunting. Well, they were involved in hunting in the Yuki affair, hunting an infernalist in the city.
I met Miss Yuki briefly.
Good.
The brief time I met her, she did not seem to be a terribly bad person, but I guess you cannot judge a book by their cover.
I would agree with your assessment. She was not a terribly bad person. She was just someone who repeatedly kept in very stupid things.
I've learned in my time on this world, there's only so many people you can fix. That's the best way I can describe it.
I would have sincerely preferred that Yuki get a proper, fair, and open trial, to establish all the facts, set out exactly what happened, and also potentially find the other people who were guilty. Sadly, none of that happened.
I understand.
But she requested the good death in accordance with the Xanatos tradition. It was granted.
So that's what tradition she represented. That's good to know.
Yes, I believe that's the case. That's one thing. I mean, more shocking. The Thanatos are normally a lot better at dealing with infernalists, or more direct anyway.
Well, I can tell you how at least some of the people I used to deal with from time to time would handle it. It would be most likely no trial if it was proved to be true, and would be a summary execution.
Mm.
But
Quite.
then again, it would likely be a field execution if it were so.
But as you say, I'd hope there'd be at least some paperwork after the fact.
I would imagine so. Not my purview, but yes.
Who were these people you used to deal with? Or work with?
He just kind of takes a sip of his tea, kind of sets it back down, and he's actually going to he's going to look him in the eye before he says this. And can I get a perception empathy off of Mr. Rupert there?
Sure. Oh, just a moment. I haven't got my sheet up.
Well, I'm giving it to him, so. However, I received no successes, so it really doesn't matter.
Okay. Well, I don't think I've got a great role on this, but perception and.
If I give you just 1 second, being summoned to get something for the girlfriend real quick.
No successes for me.
Sorry about that. She had already taken her Ambien and couldn't walk down the stairs for something.
Right.
Sorry.
Well, yes, you were about to say?
Uh, I represented a group, and OC. I'm trying to figure out what they were called previously. What were they called? Damn it. Well, the group I was part of used to be called the Brotherhood of the Rule back in Rome. If that means anything to you.
I think it does.
Well, I can use their colloquial term for the new time, I suppose. I defected from the syndicate.
Oh, of the tenocracy.
Yes.
Ah, well, hmm. Well,
Hard not to when someone threatens your wife's soul.
hmm. Well,
And does what they did to all those people.
you're not the first defector I've met. Oh, indeed. What with the virtual depths and the Aetherites, we're becoming full of them.
Well, yes, what was it? The virtual adepts didn't become a full member of of the council until what, the 1960s or 70s? I believe.
I always think of them as defecting as during the Second World War, but you're right, they may not have been a full member right away.
That seems to be right. You have to forgive me. It's been a harrowing few days. Normally, I can remember anything at the drop of a hat. And he taps his head. Photographic memory.
You say that. I mean, of course, you might not have heard. They've changed their name now.
What's that?
They now call themselves the Mercurial Elite.
The adepts?
Yes, I'm not quite sure why.
That seems to be an odd name.
Well, Mercury, I suppose, is the god of messages, but trying to catch some reflected glory from us, perhaps. Not that they'd ever admit it. But then lots of traditions seem to have changed their name in the last few years.
Yes. What was it? The Electrodyne engineers became what? The children of ether, and now they're just calling themselves the Etherites, I believe, or the Society of Ether.
Yeah, they were the Sons of Ether for many years, but I think their female members finally objected, and they became the Society of Ether.
I mean, that at least is understandable from a political perspective. Well, Mr. Rupert, so you said this is not the first of the union to defect. Are they the first to defect to this group that you know of in the city?
You're not the first one I've met in this city, but sorry, you mentioned some quite distressing matters about a soul.
My wife. My wife passed away in 1990. She served in the military during the Desert Shield conflict.
Oh.
She was part of the medical corps and suffered wounds and died from complications of them later. It was during the depression I had afterwards and my summary retirement that I had my own enlightenment. She might have been the trigger, to be honest. I don't know. But the individual known as Cypher 9, who previously had been my manager.
I saw a communication with, I think that was what he was called, Cypher
9, yes. A little bit of information, and this was actually part of the information I gave
Mm.
to Madame Denafrier to
Mm.
be considered, is the ciphers. How do I put this? They weren't born. The ciphers are a genetically grown command unit. They were perfected in some or another fashion. I'll be honest, it was outside of my purview. But they were genetically and cybernetically altered to be the ultimate command unit,
Mm.
and were put through a series of rapid aging to put them up to speed, to the point that Cypher 9 can't be more than 5 years old. And in all likelihood, and I can't confirm this,
Mm.
in all likelihood has probably seen or experienced through various adjustments any logical outcome that would have happened over the last few months, which can likely explain some of the attacks and the reason why there's a few kill squads floating around right now.
What you said is new to me, but it makes sense given the way I heard him speak of probabilities of events. Um, I was on the mission which reclaimed the Leviathan.
Yes, the one that Miss Hoth is the current captain of. Yes,
Yes,
yes, I met with her briefly.
I believe she prefers Doctor Hoth. But yes, um, so that's when I saw a communication from Cipher 9, and there was a progenitor on board that we encountered with a doctor. She had a very long, complicated name, which
He actively shudders when you say the progenitors.
I believe she was a low-ranking one. She'd been left behind and put herself in stasis, and she probably would have defected. To be honest with you, if she'd survived, the Cipher 9 had no concern for her and had already recorded her as dead, um, which kind of does predispose one to change sides.
Yes, they likely deemed her to be a null asset at that point.
It was extremely regrettable that she did not survive. Um,
I
and
take it one with the primal traditionalist Axter.
she was a cooperative prisoner. We had to leave, ironically enough, Yuki behind in stasis to prevent a disease that she'd picked up. The technocrats bluffed and threatened her. Um, an individual in a sketch, who I assume was her lover, responded by killing the prisoner we had. I can assure you,
It's wasteful.
well, I can assure you we disapprove in the strongest possible terms. I am actively seeking to prosecute him for war crimes over the affair. But he's fled the city.
Hmm. If he should be tracked down, he will eventually be so.
Mm. And also, by the act, it immediately endangered us. Leviathan's AI had recognized us as a neutral party until he did that act. At which point, things became a lot more difficult.
I would imagine so. The artificial intelligence, from my understanding, do not tend to play nice with things outside of their parameters.
Quite.
I don't tend to associate with them though. I hate I hate the blasted things.
Um, mm. So, mm, trying to think, what are the names that I've come across that you might know? I heard talk of an entity known as Mr. Smith. It's maybe in Hong Kong. Um, technocrat so powerful he could copy his mind into the minds of others and overwrite theirs.
That is, it's within the realm of possibility. There were a few in my previous organization who could definitely subjugate others by their sheer social domination, so I can't see why that couldn't happen.
I mean, beyond. I mean, this is beyond mere domination. This is a complete overwrite and complete duplicate of himself.
That seems almost like it would have been something along the purview of Iteration X.
So we thought someone who had a lesser but similar ability of that, a being whose mind had been broken into parts, and each part was possessing the minds of others. Most. But speaking of souls, that was how I first learned about these dealing with souls on the Leviathan's engine core.
It nasty business. No, it goes completely against the ethics of, well, the technocracy, to be completely honest. Can I speak frankly with you, Mr. Rupert?
Yes.
For all intents and purposes, to the average layman of the technocracy, you are the boogeyman. You realize this, right?
Yes.
All the stories we hear of you all are terroristic actions, and when a clear loss has been obtained, just rampant killing when there doesn't need to be any more. There doesn't need to be the pain. There's so much sadness that we hear that comes out of this that it boggles the mind, to the point that, honestly, if the traditions were not my only option, I would probably not be petitioning any of them. What I did personally, Mr. Rupert, was I was in human resources for my group. I handled the people's paychecks who were in the development of munitions and new cures and the distribution of them to the populace at mass at a rate that the general populace's paradigm could understand. For example, I almost guarantee, mind you, I didn't have access at the time. I almost guarantee that there's a cure for cancer floating around completely. But the populace, by and large, is not yet ready to accept that. They wouldn't accept it. A flat-out cure. They think, oh, there's no cure. It can only be treated. I assure you there likely is a cure. Much in the same fashion that I'm quite sure there is a munition of some sort that could likely blow up this tiny island we are on and leave no trace of it. I would not want that to go through, but I'm pretty sure it exists.
You're saying that the junior members, they honestly think they're fighting the good fight?
Not even the junior members. Mr. Rupert, I had been with them for nearly 25 years. No, not 25 years. I apologize. 15 years. It's not that they're fighting the good fight, as it were. For all intents and purposes, if you break it down to this basic level, they are the good guys. They are doing what they are doing for the greater good of humanity. I was actually speaking about this with a Miss Daniela and Miss Ashley prior to the events the other weekend, and with Master Siren. And there's propaganda on either side, let's put it that way.
Invariably. Well, there's there's deliberate propaganda and there's people with sincere beliefs talking to each other.
It's true.
I'm, I'm sure there are good people on both sides. The progenitor I met seemed perfectly reasonable, and after her death, they made a point of showing us pictures of her family, her child. She was a mother, a scientist, a researcher. I assume she worked on cures and not just horrible monstrosities like the things we encountered. Though when we end up dealing with the technocracy, it tends to be because they've constructed some mad scheme. At one stage, I heard it was a device in the power plant here to blow up every supernatural in the city. Then it was the Soul Engine on the Leviathan.
The device to exterminate what would have been called reality deviants is not that odd, to be completely honest, when you consider the fact that humanity by and large has no defense against people of the supernatural. There is no real defense. When you think about the various hemophages and phobophages and the various lupine sorts and of the ancient legends you hear about, there is no real defense humanity has except for steel and their own will, and frankly, the will of man is not what it once was. And when we hear about people such as the little I've heard about a Lord Sisho,
I am aware of that individual. I have met him.
I remember hearing something about selling people into slavery.
That I had not heard. Do you have anything beyond hearsay on that?
You would need to talk to people who have encountered him directly, such as Mr. Grant, or perhaps a Mr. Iscariot of the Mercury. Oh, see, I can't remember what you would call the new virtual adept name.
Yeah,
in character, I would say the right thing.
Virtual depths, and that's fine.
Yeah,
I think some of them still prefer that title.
it's fine. Yes, that was the individual who apparently worked with me, or I worked with them, to hold back one of these soul energy stones. But that is who I found out the information from, and I wouldn't have found it out if, well, Miss Bjornsson hadn't not begun being herself. Put it that way.
Well, what to say to that? Yes, there are probably good people on both sides. There probably are in every war, and there are also bad people on both sides. And yes, the aspects of the technocracy we hear about or end up having to deal with tend to be absolutely abominable. Like
yes.
I mean, at the same time, there are people on the traditions who are essentially civilians. They are living their quiet lives. They may be seeking knowledge. They may be using their arts to improve the immediate quality of their own lives and those around them. But they're not meaning to do anything beyond live a private life. There are those who are, so we say, more militant, more martial. There are those who would go out and hunt down, you've used some lupines or other monsters, things that go bump in the night. Our kind was doing that. You say the will of men is weak. Well, I can see why you say that, but we are men. Our will is not weak.
Are we men any longer?
Oh, there's a deep question.
I'd like to think at least we were and can be again. That is what I like to think.
There are those certainly in the order who would say that we're not, that we've become something else. I would say that we are, because we are still alive. in every conventional sense. We still have souls in every conventional sense. That's what defines us as human.
Well, I would hope so. The God help me, I'd hope so. Would it strike you as odd then to know that there are people within at least the group I was with who did simple jobs such as filing clerk or or janitor?
Did they continue to do such roles? Or,
Yes,
oh,
that is their job. For example, my skills were in that of accounting and bookkeeping. They stuck me in human resources.
um, I'm not
I wasn't trained as a field agent.
going to say this is true of every tradition made, but I so like prefer to maintain a mundane occupation. It keeps me grounded in the world.
I was actually in the market to pursue that. I actually obtained my business license for over here to do just that.
Splendid.
Planning on setting up a credit union.
Mm. Well, I'm sure it's going to be a turbulent year, what with Brexit happening.
Well, yes, I assume it will be. Admittedly, if it goes well, I do intend to eventually set up a bank of sorts for individuals such as ourselves that deals in primal currency, but
Mm.
that's a separate endeavor.
Mm.
I believe you all would refer to primal currency as TAS.
Oh, yeah, TAS would be the term if it's in a yes a solidified portable form, I suppose.
Yes, the idea would be most likely for a thing, something you would place in a safety deposit box. Think of it that way.
Historically, the order would use the term "Weiss," pronounced pronounced "Weiss," spelt VIS, which is simply Latin for power.
I sadly did not take Latin back in my schooling days. Perhaps I should have. I was too busy being lovesick.
Well, it's there are some very old, very traditional laws about formal business in the order being conducted in Latin. It actually makes a lot of sense, as you can imagine, for an order that spans Europe with I don't know how many languages to have one shared common language.
That's understandable. That's part of the reason I love working with numbers is numbers are universal.
Well, I suppose if as long as you're using the Arabic system, yes.
Yes, but by and large, numbers in general are universal.
Mm. So, well, I guess I wish you could fortune your in business endeavors. For my part, I work as a lawyer.
That
I
could be
norm,
useful.
I, nor- I normally specialize in criminal law and the hermetic law of the order, but I can maybe able to be of assistance.
Well, that could be useful. I had actually just worked on the proper visas and whatnot for Mr. Grant, but very soon I'm going to need to take out a rather handsome loan to start up said endeavor. I have enough of my own funds to get started, but it wouldn't hurt to have a little bit more for capital.
Mm.
But we'll see. We'll see what happens. The First off, I've got a place picked out that is, I think, will suffice. It is where to go? Do 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 do. Sorry about that. It's a where the friggity frack? Oh, it's a lovely place near one of the parks in the area,
Mm.
right off of Harcourt Street.
Mm. Oh, splendid. Um, would the name or term Project Morpheus mean anything to you?
Yes, actually.
Perhaps you can tell me what it is.
Oh, so the long and short of what I know, I learned from Eliza Hoff. But what I learned is it is something that deals with the eradication of thoughts and ideas from humans by and large. The idea to, on its grandest scale, could potentially remove free will. I don't think that would happen just based off of what I know about the union, but if the wrong person is leading the project, it could potentially happen. I think it's more meant for things such as removing the idea of fear or removing the idea of supernaturals, things that take belief to gain power. Perhaps even to make it easier for the paradigm of humanity to be more accepting. I don't know. It was not my project field.
Ah, okay. That's consistent with the bits I've heard. I've heard rumours that something like a sixth of the union's whole resources were devoted to it.
I've heard slightly higher. I've heard 20%.
Including the Leviathan before it fell. And the crucial date is not long now, the 10th of September.
That is not long from now at all. As I've told Master Siren, and I told the individuals who were willing to hear me out that did not think of me as subhuman, I'll help any way I can. The best way I can likely help is to identify what the teams are using as far as munitions and plan around that, and what they may potentially have to patch themselves back together. I could also give a good estimate based on if one of them could be taken alive, I could likely get information out of them that would be more understood. That is about the best I can offer. Sadly, I don't hold a lot of true skill in the manipulation of the universal forces. I haven't really devoted much time into it, to be honest.
So I imagine that is will be our next technocratic entanglement.
I could see that.
So I'm aware that the demon that went by the name of Faust was also had plans for that date, but I assume they've now been derailed.
I'm not aware of this individual.
Oh, well, you were already aware of Yuki.
Yes.
She did a deal with a demon which went by the username of Faust, as in the famous Infernalist.
That's right on the nose, isn't it?
And Demon gave her some help for the city or something in return for naming rights over her first child.
I suppose it could be worse.
Well, at the time, she had no plans to have children. As I said, she was captured by the technocracy, but mysteriously returned a day or two later, pregnant.
That sounds like something the progenitors would do.
3 months pregnant, despite having been gone for a day or two.
Yes, definitely something the scientists would do.
And as I said, the pregnancy was terminated when she was executed, though the demon then put an appearance to collect the soul of the child.
Ugh. It means that hopefully lends to my theory that this is a rogue branch and not the Union as a whole. The Union, as much as it is boogeyman, I guess is the best way I can put it, by the traditions, they are predictable by and large. They tend to follow a certain mindset. Rogue factions, however, do not, and this is in line with a rogue faction.
So that's what Faust was up to. There have been all sorts of wild rumours, some of which I'm not frankly sure seem too grand to believe. Faust had somehow stolen a true name and was given it to this child because a demon had not the power of creation to create an original true name. There were some wild theories that maybe the Antichrist or some such.
You just see confusion on his face, like he doesn't understand what you're talking about at all.
Okay. Still,
like he picked up on Antichrist and demons and whatnot, but the rest of it, nah, not even a little.
Okay. Okay, perhaps when we speak of something's name or its true name, we're not just talking about a label. If you remember in the Bible when the burning bush appears,
yes,
and of course the question is asked, "Who are you?" And the burning bush replies, "I am."
yes,
That's not God saying. The question is not what do I call you. The question is what is your nature? What fundamentally are you? And God's name, or one of his names, is I am, because God is by definition.
State of being, understood.
God is even if everything else is not. Or another translation would be I am what I am, which again refers to the eternal, unchanging nature of God. Equally, all the famous archangels have names which say what they are. They sum up their nature. So when we say he was given naming rights over the child, we don't mean he gets to say what it's called. He gets
to say what it is.
Fundamentally define its nature.
That is terrifying. That is simply terrifying.
Well, Yuki was eventually executed. That took a lot of doing to arrange to get that matter not be ignored. And yes, and the creature known as Faust is now gone away and dealt with.
For how long?
Well, hopefully forever.
From my understanding, it's very difficult to deal with those extra-dimensional beings.
Well, it's back where it belongs for now. I'm hoping that will be well.
In hell, I'm assuming?
Yes.
Or what we would call hell?
Well, what it would call hell, I think.
You don't think it wants to be back home?
No, I don't. Well, I'm not sure I'm not sure that's really its home, is it?
Depends on whether or not it is an angel that fought in the war, or whether or not it's something that sprang about later.
It professed to be the first.
Then again, how can you truly trust the word of a demon?
Quite. There's been rather too much trust in the word of a demon around here.
Yes, some of the Verbena might say you're doing that right now.
What, talking to you?
Yes.
Well, I didn't say I trust you.
No, but trusting what I'm saying.
I didn't say I trust what you're saying.
That's fair. That's fair.
But no. Yes, we have had a problems with people. Well, there was Yuki who was, I think, had a good heart, but did some very stupid things. As we've said, there's also some people around here who are very also done some very stupid things and are possibly not of quite such a good heart. There was an unfortunate incident with. Okay, so you've been to Dagobah Nights. There's another traditional Irish pub for.
Yes, it's connected to Siren's Library, where I've been for the past few weeks.
Yes. So there was an unfortunate incident. This would be maybe more than a month ago now. I don't know if you tell me if you've heard this story already. Some street kids were tormenting a cat outside. So certain people, including the Carly, who you've mentioned, decided to go out and put a stop to it. to be fair, is what a responsible adult would do. Unfortunately, they decided to put a response to it by blatantly exposing the child to magic and terrifying them.
That seems like a very poor idea.
They took down what they did and made some pitiful excuses. They terrified the child so much they awoke.
Oh, do what?
Awoke with such force that it killed 10 other people and caused major property damage.
That is. I have the urge to say something that my wife used to say to our little Pekingese. Bad dog, no biscuit.
Um, yes, awoke with such power that the 8-year-old child then dumped one of them into a spiritual prison with
That
words like "You have sundered the soul of a child." Um, so you see why some of us have concerns about the behaviour of certain people in the city.
completely. I'm
Uh,
beginning to understand now why some of you are treated as the boogeyman.
well, they are, yes.
Well, I mean, let's be honest, Mr. Rupert. The Hermetic Order is not free of judgment either. I mean, if you go back in your history enough, I'm sure there's plenty of unsavory things that have been done.
Oh, there have certainly been unsavory people in the order. There are the order never had a law against necromancy, for example. Um,
Well, dead things should stay dead.
and yeah, I mean the one good thing I would say this about the order is actually quite good at purging its own problems.
Internally policed, then?
Yes, well, we have a whole house devoted to it.
Really? Curiosity is showing.
Um, but I should just finish the story about what happens around here before we get into ancient history.
Sure, sure.
So yeah, the individuals responsible. I warn you because you want to meet them. It was a gentleman named Collins, who is a of the
Yes. I've met Mr. Collins briefly.
of the one of the crafts, the hollow one, I think. Carly, who mentioned, I think more possibly Morgan as well. I was involved. I heard.
Mm-hmm.
And Collins has an oddity where his shadows move of their own accord, which he deliberately used to terrify the child. And he then claimed this wasn't magic because he wasn't actively casting a spell.
It, mm, he just shakes his head. He can't say anything. He just shakes his head.
Quite. So, and to make things better, they've since demanded access to the child to train her. You can imagine we're not letting that happen.
I just know.
So, if I'll say something in the Order's defense, it takes in traumatized children, looks after them, and teaches them how to control their powers.
That's good, at least.
And
I imagined you allowed them to have a bed and sleep and some recreational time and learning what they need to learn. So that's not the worst thing ever.
well, quite well. It was a homeless street kid. Frankly, they'll get a far better childhood with us than they would have had before.
Good.
Um,
I think I've made a decent choice in petitioning. If you're anything to say about the order,
but what I should answer your question. The Order has a number of houses. There were 12 originally. Some of those still exist. Some of those have been relegated to minor houses or no longer exist. New houses have come into being. The houses were originally a direct lineage of master to apprentice. But a bit like in academia, how if a PhD student is trained by a particularly esteemed professor, that conveys a status upon them. We no longer teach everything by one master to one pupil. It's not exactly efficient as an educational model. But even if much tuition is delivered to classes, it's still possible for some of it to be under a recognised mentor. For my part, I served my apprenticeship under Dinofre, who you've met.
Yes.
So hence, I still address her as Mater, literally mother. And I would be said to be her filius, her son.
And how did that apprenticeship go for you? I mean, obviously it was successful, but how did that go?
I had a different experience to many. I was also rescued at a young age by the order and taken in by them. So I didn't have the mundane childhood. But they've trained me and made me the man I am. They've funded me my education, my mundane education as well. And yes, I served 5 years under Dinofre. I have chosen to take her house, though these days some people change to a different house when they graduate. And we still maintain a better relationship than I'm sure many people have with their mothers.
Well, I would imagine so. At least in my particular case, she passed away a few years back.
So,
I'm an old man. It happens. You don't go live as long as I have and not deal with a little death.
No.
I just don't want to die until this project is done with.
It's not something you will need to decide right away, but if you are to join us, you may want to think. We should think about longer term which house would be most suitable to you. The houses are, as I said, they were originally master pupil lineages, so they are their own tradition in their own right. They are, some were more Romo-Greek, some were more from other parts of Europe.
Yes.
So there are differences in philosophy and outlook. There is a house, I mentioned that we have a house dedicated to our legal system, formerly House Nicholas, but they're normally called the Quesitors, which is their title.
Understood.
My own house and the House of Dinofre are the Flambeau. Our founder was a Spaniard who fought in the Reconquistador, the war to reclaim Spain from the Moors in the 8th century.
Understood.
He was most famous as a fire wizard of the time.
I seem to recall something briefly in my notes about when dealing with tradition mages, there being quite a bit of burns.
That would be the tradition of the flambeau.
Understood. Remind me not to make you too angry.
Well, we do not all fit the stereotype.
No, I can imagine not, but still, it doesn't hurt to learn not to make people angry.
It's always good to not make anyone angry, but the flambeau we were for many years there. We were the order's, you could say, warrior caste or knights. Many of our house embraced ideals of chivalry and honourable combat. We saw the apprenticeship as a squireship. But then these are old stories of long ago. Even the order does move with the times.
Yes, that's understandable. Do you have any questions for me, Mr. Rupert? I'm obviously going to have questions for the next long while, but
It takes a moment to think on that. You've mentioned your plans for a credit union. You mentioned your plans to join the order.
Yes.
Is your intention now to seek to live a quiet private life, which I don't think anyone would begrudge you, or is it to actively fight in the Ascension War?
I don't know about fighting in the Ascension War, but I do know I will not let my wife's soul be something that can be dealt with in the way they're talking. After I know that her soul is safe and I've made whatever effort I can to stop Cypher 9, that may change. For now, I have to obtain the power to do that. And, well,
you're a devoted man seeking to rescue or save his wife.
yes, which don't worry, the irony of saving someone who is already dead is not lost on me.
Well, as I said, that was not so different to how my house started. A devoted man seeking to save his fatherland. Yeah, the passion intensity to save the things that you love goes a long way. What I'm getting at is, if you go down that path, which it sounds like you wish to, then will invariably come a time when you are in combat with the technocracy.
Just a moment. Sorry, IRL. Sorry about that.
As I was saying, it sounds like there will invariably come a time when you are in open conflict, possibly literal combat with the technocracy, possibly people that you have a low opinion of, but possibly people that you have a more respected opinion of. Can you see why it would be reasonable to have concerns?
Oh, of course. I mean, frankly, if people were just to welcome me with open arms, I would question their judgment of being people.
I assume the relevant people would do the relevant tests.
Yes,
That's not that. I'm taking that as read that you're going to pass those, and that's not what I'm getting at. What I'm getting at is, suppose we're on a mission to rescue your wife.
Yes.
And we encounter technocrats that we're in combat with, and suppose one of them is someone that you count as a friend.
I would feel sad at what happened, but if they got in the way of what needed to be done for her, then they would be dealt with. I would rather show some mercy than not, but sometimes mercy cannot be done without compromising those of you who are helping you. I would like to give people the same opportunity I had. And I don't necessarily mean to join the traditions. As I said, the core belief, at least for what is taught to those below, is that what they're doing to better mankind.
And we, I'm sure, would like to think that we are also doing the same.
Yes. So the ultimate goal between the two would be to have us not be enemies, but as far as I can tell, the traditions themselves war with themselves and only ally against things they cannot take out by themselves.
Yes, there is conflict among the traditions. Some traditions are better at policing their own than others. Well, we've already mentioned there are mages in the city who have done things which I would not approve of.
No.
And there were people who were harbouring Yuki for far too long, and keeping her hidden and protecting her, and partly because they saw her as a friend, they let their personal feelings for her cloud their judgment.
I will say this. Were I in that case, and where I have been a friend of Miss Yuki at the time, I likely would have tried to facilitate an ease and make her as comfortable as I could. But I think if she did do something like that, and it could not be
Mm.
benefited to those around us, then action would have to be taken.
For my part, I simply wanted her to come in and have a fair and open full trial. I didn't want anything particularly untoward or any kind of fill justice to happen. At that point, the Templars were looking for her, so it was for her own safety as well. A sad affair. And I honestly, what I never fully was able to establish was whether she truly repented her act or whether she would do it again.
That's the trick, isn't it? There's some deeds that have been done by many of us that led to the more positive outcome, but could we do it over again? I'd like to think we wouldn't, but how do we know? For example, there are people who, let's just say there are people who I audited back when I worked with the IRS that their lives were basically destroyed afterwards because they did something wrong. And many times I heard if I could do it again, I wouldn't do it. But it doesn't change the fact when it's something like that, you can't go back and do it again. And at least in these particular cases, it was not cases of life and death. For cases of life and death, there's a little more gravity to it.
Yes. So, as I say, I mean, it's fair to warn you because if you start being seen as a member of the Order, there are those in the city like Carly who openly don't like us.
That doesn't change anything for me, at least.
No. And unfortunately, her and her little cabal, effectively, they do hold many different seats on the Council of Nine Traditions in this city. It is a problem, and I don't like it. And some of us are trying to deal with it because they are doing. They were well. They are at the very least. They were many of them are guilty of harbouring a known infernalist and the ritual child abuse incident. I suppose I should explain this to you, and then some detail. There was also the problem. You put the. I assume the word "deny" means nothing to you.
Let me think. Oh, see, I think he might know what that means, but I'm going to check. Gay for making lore check. Well, effectively making stuff. Anyway. Yeah, are you referring to the Native American people of the American Southwest?
No, but good try. Danae was one of the founders of the Order. They are from Britain, as in Brittany.
Yes.
She was a druid, and that brought the druidic tradition into the Order. She then purged the remaining druids. But as you can imagine, they were quite a strong house in Ireland here and in Britain.
Yes.
Around what would have been around the first decade of the 1000 millennium.
Yes.
I'm not sure how best to say that. They were tried. I think the biggest trial in our history, and found guilty of various high crimes. An entire house was cast out the Order. We fought a war with them for a decade and finally destroyed them at great loss. Frankly, the war was a bit touch and go, from what I gather.
Yes.
They were the largest house. The reason why this is relevant and not mere ancient history is a few mages in this city from other traditions have apparently found a lost or hidden Diné chantry and are now calling themselves members of House Diné.
And is that considered to be akin to sacrilege
Well,
now? Or
the house was convicted on a massive crime of infernalism.
oh my.
um, you might, okay.
Would that knowledge perhaps not be known to them?
Oh gosh, oh they're clear. Oh no, it was a frame up. They weren't guilty at all. Honest is what they say.
I mean, that is that not possible?
Mm, well, it seems unlikely given this was the largest trial in the order's history. I mean,
Yes.
I granted I could accept that maybe there were some people in their house who were not infernalists and some people that were. They
Yes.
were an overtly pagan house. They were clearly engaged in activity like human sacrifice.
Yes.
Going further back in history, Julius Caesar recounts of humans being burnt alive in wicker men,
Yes.
that sort of thing.
Oh, well, either way, they're not people I'd want to associate with, but I would like to think they're not infernalists.
They were
I'd
also,
like to think that.
they were also convicted of other crimes. They were holding their meetings in Gaelic or other languages, not in Latin, which means that they were denying the vote to any other magi, which is a high crime because our laws are quite clear that each qualified magus has a vote at a tribunal meeting.
Understood.
So, which makes some people sound trifling, but as modern people, we can appreciate the importance of the democratic process.
Well, yes. I mean, your word should matter. Some people's word just matters more than others. Depends on the current field of what is being discussed.
Yes, but if you use a strange language to hold your meetings, all your important political meetings,
I would think that they were trying to, at the very least, subvert some of the knowledge that was going on. At the very least,
quite. And if you had something to hide, there was appropriate demands for essentially another house had been some infernals had been exposed and dealt with. That triggered a demand for full investigation across the order. They could point blank refuse any investigation.
that doesn't hold well for them. I will admit that.
So we could dig up legal records from 1,000 years ago, and we can debate whether it was a just war 1,000 years ago. We're talking about before the Norman Conquest. Yeah, but this is relevant to us now because there are a few people in this city who are openly calling themselves they're not. You doing it on introduction, but they are fairly openly, I gather, calling themselves members of House Diné. Now, these would include Sketch, the war criminal who murdered the progenitor.
Yes.
Who shouted to Dr. Eliza Hoff on the bridge of Leviathan in front of me, "You have to complete the Diné mission."
This, at the very least, this warrants investigation from what I'm hearing.
This would also include the ecstatic, I think, known as Lottie.
Understood.
Now, and so some of these people who they were openly consorted and harboured Yuki, for what we could gather.
Yes.
So they were at best aiding and abetting an infernalist knowingly.
Yes, this is true.
This is all building up a body of evidence and some crimes.
I will definitely concede that it doesn't look good for them if nothing else. I would not outright say that they're infernalists by themselves, but if nothing else, they have definitely consorted with people who are.
They're claiming membership of an infernalist tradition, which, I mean, if someone says they're a Satanist,
yes.
Do we stop and go, well, does that make them an infernalist or not?
I don't know enough about the religion to say so, but I would think so.
In any, That's for Lottie. I was in a meeting with the other heads, with the heads of the traditions of the city. I was representing the order at the time,
Yes.
just for this meeting. This was at Law Sideshow, who mentions home. Yuki had wandered in, so he'd arrested her.
All right.
And they were demanding that she be released into their custody. And there was talk about trials and ways to proceed. Lottie openly said she wanted a show trial. That was her exact words.
Uh,
Now, just to paint you a picture of this, I was I'd gone to that meeting straight from work, so I was there in my full lawyer's suit
yes.
on this council meeting. When I hear the word show trial said, I'm not impressed.
No, I wouldn't be either.
Um, so um, at the very least, it seems the house. I'm told she's the head of this new house. At the very least, she's perverted the course of justice, which every legal system takes a very dim view of.
There's a term that is used that describes perfectly what needs to happen, and that is there needs to be an audit.
Uh, quite. Unfortunately, it's not like they're going to come quietly. Um,
No, and to openly try to take them by force would be considered an act of war, most likely.
and and I mean, don't begrudge the fact they are a powerful cabal.
Yes, you can't ignore the fact that they at least have some skill in what they do, at the very least, right?
Well, I suspect they're many of them. From what I've seen, their talents are they're good at combat. I'm not sure what else they're good at. They're good, and apart from tormenting children, but they are good at combat. They know how to fight. They're tooled up. To put it in the bluntly. Um, so that's the problems in this city. We've got a a rogue cabal of our own who are doing some pretty bad things, shall we say? And unfortunately, they control the majority of votes on the council here.
You see that he's holding his teacup, which is he's long since finished, and his veins are popped out of his hand a little bit, and just the irritation and frustration is just rising in him.
So, I mean, I'm afraid it may well be that we're not so different to the technocracy after all.
No, if that is the case, without anything else to think about it,
But
I'm very sure they most likely believe that they are doing nothing wrong, that they are doing things for the betterment of those around them, and they have a twisted sense of what is going on. Much like almost any other political power that has ever existed.
Yes.
Mr. Rupert, I believe that is enough for today.
Yes.
My heart can only take so much. I did just have a heart attack recently.
Sorry to end on a sad note.
It's all right.
Actually, perhaps I could just end on a slightly lighter topic then.
Sure.
We've talked a lot about pagans and demons and spirits. Are you religious yourself?
I was born and raised a Methodist.
Oh, that's not a direct answer.
I pray occasionally.
Good. I mentioned St. Patrick's earlier. It is now safe, and say the Templars left it and then were defeated. So
Understood.
it was not safe for us while they occupied it.
I believe I have been to a quite lovely place that kind of reaffirmed my faith a bit. I believe there was a father that was there. One of the first nights I was here, actually, we went Well, just say it the way I know it, and if I have to break it down, I will. Myself and a few others were transported by a nightingale. This was the individual's name, not a literal bird nightingale. Uh, to what I am to understand is a dimension of the chorus, and we were transported to a great cathedral on the clouds. It was a stressful night.
Yes, I was a.
And I
That's
believe
not
it.
the place I've been. Um,
No, but it was a place that made me reaffirm my faith a bit.
I can see how that would happen. I've had my own faith reaffirmed experience recently.
Well, that's a positive thing at the very least.
Yes, it's it's not always easy for well awakened people of strong will to be able to put their will aside. Um, the order it has pagans, it has Christians, it has had Jews and Muslims in, and those of not many magi are not of strong faith in any particular being because, as I say, they believe in their own power.
They believe in hubris, yes.
Some would say that is the sin of wizards. Yes.
Yes.
But where people who have the power to cause earthquakes, it's hard to kneel to a higher power.
Sometimes that's the only way you can get through the day. I have not lived that way in quite a long time, but there are many days that help me.
Indeed. Um, and as we said, many of these, well, House Dene were overtly druidic pagans, and yes, and then there was Kali, who I think is of the follows the Norse gods and such like.
Yes.
So many of them are actively overt militant pagans. Um, but which always the thing I struggle to understand about that is if they're established mages, if they've been around, if they know the cosmology, they know enough about the spirit world to know that those are not that's the difference between God and umbral spirits.
Is that what it's called on the other side? The Umbra?
Uh, yeah, the umbra, as in it's the Latin word for shadow, or I think as in, well, I think it's used in science actually to mean the huge shadow in space cast by the Earth.
That I can understand.
So we use it to mean the spirit world because it's in some sense is the shadow reflection of Earth.
The way I've always internalized it is different dimensions connected to our own in a different resonance.
Mm.
But I think I understand.
That what's here is reflected there. So, or
Yes.
what here casts a shadow there.
Yes,
Um,
yes. That I can
other,
understand.
yes, and the beings that they call gods are simply powerful entities from that place.
Well, you may laugh at this, but what you all would call magic, the technocracy has learned that you can replicate the same things through science, and science can be explained.
Ah, yes. How does the quote go? Any sufficiently advanced magic is
Any sufficiently advanced technology is seen as magic.
yes. Ah, thank you. That's what Asimov, wasn't it?
Um, I believe.
Well, there's a second part to that quote from a TV series. As you said, any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic.
That's one
And
of
yeah,
Clark's three
yeah,
laws.
yes. The second, but this additional quote then goes, the reverse is also true.
Yes, it's my favorite of his laws is actually the first.
Mm.
It's when a distinguished but elderly scientist states that something is possible, he is almost certainly right. When he states that something is impossible, he is very probably wrong.
Mm.
Mr. Rupert,
Yes,
I do not know
we should
if I
go.
will.
Sorry, go on.
I do not know how well I will fit with my mindset into here, but I think I feel positive about this choice for now, at least.
Mm.
I still think you're all the damn boogeymen, but I think that at this point is more of a survival instinct than a truth.
Well, the traditions are many things. At some level, we're a social club. We're a social club with our own traditions and customs, but we are a social club. Not we don't all share the same worldview. We don't all share the same way of working. That's one reason we have different houses.
No, I mean, by and large, I do
Our
my
houses are
adjust.
more houses of artifice who work with items, who make things. These are who make technology. Maybe not the technology you would, as you would understand it.
Yes.
Um, but it's been a pleasure to meet with you, and I imagine we'll be seeing a lot more of each other if you're going to be with us. I think you need to decide: do you wish to join as a, shall we say, as a member of our social club, or do you actually wish to learn our systems, our beliefs, our signs, our symbols, our numbers, our elements, and learn how we work and try to do the same?
Well, I if there is a group that lines up best to the, and he almost struggles for the word for a moment. I believe the outlook that you all refer to for the effects and procedures would be the paradigm in which your life is, or the way you view the world around you.
Mm.
I
Mm.
line up with value, numbers. What
Mm.
if something is, this sounds crass, but if something is profitable, then it can be done.
Mm.
If something is not profitable, it should not and therefore will not be done.
Have you heard of House Fortuna?
No, I know very little about the order, to be honest.
They're one of the current great houses. They deal with money, certainly,
Mhm.
with probability and fortune and chance, as the name implies. Um, they were originally Kabbalists, the Jewish tradition, and mathematicians. They they deal with money a bit like the syndicate, but they focus on the different aspects of it. Um, hmm, yes, I think
I, uh,
they,
I
they, they tend to specialize in the arts we call entropy.
okay. If this is going to sound odd, but I've been asking this of a few people. Do you all perhaps happen to have a brochure, or
Uh,
could one be made?
yes, no, yes, I believe there is a basic primer. Um, I say I know someone else. Well, I saw one recently because another person that joined our tradition was reading it. So I'm sure one can be found for you.
If one could be sent to the pub, actually, what you had mentioned earlier, I'm actually staying inside the library connected there, having something sent there right now, currently, and two, actually, one of the a copy at least of one of the original works of Mr. Jakob and Wilhelm Grimm.
Oh, I heard that name recently. Jacob Grimm was in this come to the city.
I met him officially today. He has the bluest eyes. Hmm,
Interesting.
very nice man.
He might be he might be hmm, of fair blood, I suppose.
Hmm, possibly. With that, however, Mr. Rupert, I will be adjourning for today. I thank you for the tea and your time.
You're welcome. Well, as I said, the offer gave me 5 years. It's only right I now pay it forwards.
Well, I appreciate you not blowing me up.
I'm not that kind of flambeau.
Well, he stands up and holds out his hand.
Shakes.
Thank you for the chance, if nothing else.
Well, so, until next time.
Yep, he's going to straighten his tie and walk out and leave.
Hey, thank you, pleasant players. Thank you, watchers, for watching another episode of Darkness in Dublin.